I love you. Yesterday you had said something about your inner being, and wouldn't it be nice to know everything it was telling you?
Well, everything that it's telling you now. Not everything it knows forever and ever. That would be overwhelming. But everything that it's thinking about what you're focused upon now.
In that moment.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have a little bit of understanding about that connection to my inner being, as maybe you can say how Esther connects to Abraham. And I know often you're telling stories about how Abraham told Esther something. Is she going into a state like this?
Yeah. When Jerry was around, she would discuss her whatever with Jerry. And they would turn on a recorder, and Jerry would present it as best he could to us. And then we would speak to him in the recorder, and then Esther would listen back. And that was a satisfying way of sort of co-creating with Jerry. These days, Esther takes her laptop and types her question from her conscious Esther awake aware state. And then she relaxes, gets into what you would describe as a soft meditative state, and takes dictation from us.
And you do
So
it, do you
write,
type it back then to yourself?
We
Okay.
write the answers back to her, and she does it every day.
Okay, so what's the difference between discussing the question with Abraham as to Esther's inner being, or is that the same thing?
Well, Esther's inner being is a component of the larger group of consciousness that we are calling Abraham. Consciousness is a stream, not a clump. So you might think of Esther's inner being as one of the clumps that's in the bigger clump that is the stream of Abraham. But
And I do understand that, because I've asked this question in a different way before of, I am ready now in this moment to go to that level where you say, you know, I know I create my own reality, I can be, do, or have whatever I want, where you're saying you can connect to those who create worlds, those people who have come before, all, you know, Abraham, Esther.
You don't have to make a pronouncement and say, I am now ready, and then wait for it to descend on you. Although that willingness and readiness and ableness is a good state of being to be in, because that allows it to happen, and you are more likely to be aware that it's happening as it is happening. But we really want you to feel with us that where you stand, we're putting you here, and out here is this cone of consciousness that's all focused and flowing to you, that is aware of you and knowing of you and thinking about you and focused with you. And all of that is happening whether you pronounce yourself ready for it or not. It doesn't start happening because you ask for it, because you've already asked for it in so many different ways. But by making the statement as you just did, that helps your readiness, provided the statement isn't lackful based.
No, it's because...
Well, we know it isn't, but if you're saying I'm ready because you're in this needy place, then even though it will continue to flow as it was even before you put it into words, your acknowledgement that you want something that hasn't been happening might keep you from being in the receiving mode.
The last
direct
conversation we
answer
had
to
was about
everything that she
focus, and
asks,
you made
because she can't
huge
receive
distinction for
the
me,
direct
because you always
answer
say, oh,
to
it just
everything
takes
that she's
focus.
asking.
And I
She's
used
like
to
you.
think
Someone
it was
the other
focus on
day
what I'm wanting,
said,
but you're saying,
I'm
no,
going to write a
focus
book on
your
what's
alignment,
the difference
focus
between
on your feeling, and focus
Abraham
on
and Esther.
being aware of your
And
emotion.
Esther said, I'll tell you the difference. Abraham knows, and I'm
Focus
learning.
on plugging in the toaster.
And we would say, she's not quite right. Esther's on the
The
leading
first
edge,
time I was
and
ever in
we
the
are
hot
following.
seat was the story
We're
Esther
all
told
in
about
this
when she
together,
went to the
you
DMV.
see.
With
But
her vision.
when Esther has
And I'm
something
like,
that's
if
really
she can
bothering
do
her,
that, what
and
could
she'll
I
sit
do
and
if
she'll
I
write
had
the
that
scenario
same
about it. And then even though
focus
she relaxes
to
and gets into the
have
receptive
that
mode, she's
in my
still
hands,
not
that
really
we
in the
have it
place
in
that she
my-
can hear every
It's not a
subtle
question,
nuance
but
that we would like to
I'm
give her. And so
often
we
distracted
speak
by
to her,
menial other
but you got to
things, and I'm
remember,
like, if this
she's
is
the
so
translator
important,
of what
and you
we're
have-
saying.
I have the
And she
ability, but
can't
here's the thing
translate
that we would
beyond
like
her
you
ability to let it flow.
settle into.
Much easier
Just
for
for a
her
day or
to
two or
translate
three.
for you,
Yeah.
because she's not hung
Magic
up on your
happens in
issues.
the menial things too.
Sometimes she'll read back those writings and
And
she'll realize, well,
just
Abraham told me
the
it then, and then they told me then, and then they told me
labeling
then. Of it being menial sort of takes the magic away from it. And so if you just acknowledge that Source is involved with you in everything. In the early days when Jerry and Esther were consciously aware that we were flowing to and through Esther, we encouraged them to utilize us in any way they could think of. So one day they were at the grocery store, and in those days Esther was still wearing 6-inch Charles Jourdan heels. It was before Tucson had taught her about gravel. So they were in the grocery store, and Jerry said, "Get Abraham, will you?" And Esther says, "Really? Now?" And Jerry said, "Yes, I'd like them to help us buy our food, pick our food." And so Esther is awkward with us in those days, and so she started screeching through the grocery store with the cart in front of her, and we chose this and 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 this, and they went to the checkout stand and paid for all of it and got home. And then Jerry said, "Abraham, why did you choose this particular food?" And we said, "None of it contains preservatives of any kind." And so then they start reading labels, and there is no preservatives of any kind in any of the food that we put into the basket. Not because we give a rip whether they eat preservatives or not, but because we want them to know that we know what we're doing. We want them to know that we don't have to read the label to know what's in the food. And so then a whole series of things. One night we suggested that they tell their friends, who were at that time the only 2 of about 5 people that knew about Abraham, to go hide somewhere in the city of Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is a very big place. It goes far in every direction. And so Wes and Nancy went in their car to hide. And Jerry was driving and Esther was directing and receiving Abraham. And we said, that way, that way, that way, turn left, turn left, turn left, that way, 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 that way. And they drove for quite a while because it's a very big place. And we said, right here. And so they stopped and they looked and there was no sign of them. And Esther was annoyed because it had been a lot of this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. And in those days, she wasn't really receiving like she is now. So it was awkward, to say the least. And so then that way, 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 stopped again. They're still not there. They spent most of the night moving from place to place around Phoenix. And then right before dawn, and after filling the car up again and eating 3 more Snicker bars, they found them. And Esther said, "We're not going to play this game ever again." And then Jerry said, "First we went here," and Wes said, "We were there, but our inner being told us to keep moving." And then Jerry said, "And then we were there," and Wes said, "We were there too, but our inner being told us to keep moving." Then Jerry said, "And then we were there." And so what was happening was they were following them. They were following the vibrational essence of them, but the manifestation of them was not fast enough in coming to please Esther. It also explains that Esther is not the only one receiving, and that's really what we're wanting you to hear. All of you have the ability to get into vibrational alignment with who you are. Every single one of you has an inner being who has an inner being who has an inner being who has an inner being. In other words, you are all so well connected. You all have so much attention and interest upon who you are right now, and where you are, and the relationship between where you are and where you want to be. And so it's just a matter of you choosing something that matters to you. But the selection is, it matters enough that you're interested and will do it, but not so much that you'll shoot yourself in your foot with doubt. You have to sort of find that balance. This is something that I want to experience, that when it happens, it will give me enough exhilaration to let me know. It will be a condition that happens that will maybe cause some momentum, but it isn't something that's so far out that my doubt will keep it from coming about now. And so life can be so sweet for you as you just allow the universe to demonstrate to you these things. How important you are, how brilliant you are, how worthy you are, how in alignment or not you are. Don't you really want to get actively connected to your own guidance? And the way you do it is just by deciding to do some of these things and let your inner being guide you to it. We would encourage all of you to play a game. Make a list of 4 or 5 things, as long as you want, but 4 or 5 is enough, of something that you would be interested in seeing that you aren't worried about not seeing. Esther and friends made a list of 20 things, and then they got in a car and roamed around, and within about 4 hours, everything on the list had shown itself to them in some sort of remarkable way. It's a really fun game to play, but it has to be something that you care about and not something that you're worried about. And watch how responsive the universe is to you. Esther has no inside track on non-physical energies. You all have access to all of this, you see. It's just a matter of asking and meaning it, and then getting into the receptive mode, and then doing that enough that you believe in your ability to do it. Esther has never doubted right from the beginning that when she stands at that podium and relaxes her consciousness, that Abraham will come forth. She has never worried about it because it has never failed her. And it won't fail you either. But your ability to recognize it will get better and better and better, you see.
I was just going to say, I think we all wish we could just sit at the computer, write the question, get the answer, and just type it out. And I think we can do that.
We don't tell Esther the direct answer to everything that she asks because she can't receive the direct answer to everything that she's asking. She's like you. Someone the other day said, I'm going to write a book on what's the difference between Abraham and Esther. And Esther said, I'll tell you the difference. Abraham knows and I'm learning. And we would say, she's not quite right. Esther's on the leading edge and we are following. We're all in this together, you see. But when Esther has something that's really bothering her, and she'll sit and she'll write the scenario about it, and then even though she relaxes and gets into the receptive mode, she's still not really in the place that she can hear every subtle nuance that we would like to give her. And so we speak to her, but you got to remember, she's the translator of what we're saying, and she can't translate beyond her ability to let it flow. Much easier for her to translate for you because she's not hung up on your issues. Sometimes she'll read back those writings and she'll realize, well, Abraham told me it then, and then they told me then, and then they told me then, and then they told me then, and then I got it. Be patient with yourself in the same way that your inner being is.
Thanks.
Good?
Thank
yes,
you.
Indeed. Yes.